Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day, and today we're going to be starting the Zero to Hero Witch playthrough. I've been running Melee Monk for about 200 hours now, so it's time to switch over to a ranged character, so I am super excited, because now it means we're going to be able to aim and fire at enemies from a distance, and I'm on controller. So yes, I'm going to be using Witch for this Zero to Hero playthrough, and the main goal of this series is to beat at least one Pinnacle boss and also beat tier 15 plus maps. I feel like that puts the build in a pretty good position, all while not using the trade market. We are banned from the trade market, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, we are going to try and go through the whole entirety of PoE 2 as a solo self-found player. I don't know if that's a good decision or not. We're going to find out. The only thing I am allowed to use is obviously I've already played through on my Monk, so I do have some currency. I'm not rich or anything. Don't worry, I've got literally 3 divine to my name, but I do have some currency to work with, and this is just mainly so I can craft and exchange for resources at a much faster pace. I know this is kind of like cheating my way through the early game, but if I'm going to be honest, early game can go suck a fat one. And also, we won't be taking just any Witch Ascendancy. We're going to be taking the quote-unquote worst Ascendancy in the friggin' game, Blood Mage.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Because, like, honestly, how bad can it even be, right, guys? So I just want to quickly talk about how the build has been performing, what we're using, and then I will get over to the actual setup for you guys. I'll jump back over to the game and we can get into the actual setup. But I do want to talk about early game because I kind of, I had to skip through a bit of early game here with some extra currency I did have courtesy of my Monk. Early game for Witch is fucking tragic. It is so painful. I have seen a lot of people give their opinions on leveling with Witch, and it's always been that it is pretty rough. I was ready for a challenge, don't get me wrong, I knew what I was getting into, but holy crap, I was not expecting it to be that bad. At least in my experience, I was having a pretty rough time. Aiming on controller sucked. Most of the Witch's early skills sucked. And then also, the Blood Mage's first ascendancy is not optional. You have to take the fucker. They lock you into this bad boy. I understand it. I understand the theme they're going for, but it does kind of suck that literally the only ascendancy tree in the whole entire game, I think, at the moment, this is the only one that locks you into the first ascendancy point. We could talk about that all day, but we're not here to do that, alright? It's just a little silly, but it sucked, okay? So the start of my Witch journey, the Zero to Hero journey, definitely was not going well. It definitely wasn't going well at all. I was about to throw the towel in. I was this close to tucking my tail between my leg and running back to the menu like a little bitch. But after watching a few more build guides and testing a few more setups out, I finally found a Witch setup that stuck with me more than a fly sticks to a piece of shit. And that setup is BoneStrom. Yep, out of all the Witch's available spells, the one that stuck with me the most was BoneStrom. Now, BoneStrom can be a little bit awkward because it is a channeling ability, so it is quite slow when you first pick it up. As soon as you start slotting in more cast speed, BoneStrom starts to shine. You can also consume power charges to make BoneStrom do AoE damage, which definitely saved my ass a lot of times, and it made my map clearing speeds a hell of a lot faster. And of course, to get power charges, we are going to be using Profane Ritual. Now, Profane Ritual is going to consume a corpse, it's going to give us a power charge, and it's also going to leave a nasty chaos dot on the ground, which does add to our overall DPS. We're also running Bone Cage, which is going to help us stop getting swarmed by so many enemies. This was a godsend early game, especially when you start getting to those Keth beetles. A lot of the second act and third act mobs start getting really quick. Bone Cage is going to put them in their place, literally. And we're also running Contagion. Contagion, I think, is a fantastic chaos dot because when you apply it to one enemy, as soon as it starts jumping to other enemies, its damage is going to scale up exponentially. So it makes clearing through big packs of enemies an absolute breeze. Not that you're really dealing with massive packs of enemies in campaign, but it does still help with your clear speeds a hell of a lot. And last but not least, we do have Enfeeble, which is going to reduce the amount of damage we take from those enemies that have been cursed from Enfeeble. Now, this bad boy can come in clutch for boss fights, reducing boss damage by 13%, Doesn't seem like a much, but it can be the make or break difference between you dying or you surviving. And we are also running some minions. You definitely don't need these for early game. It definitely helped out a lot because the minions are going to be taking aggro from the enemies from you, so you can just sit at the back and just keep spamming spells on the enemies from a safe position. Definitely don't need the Skelly Boys now that we are improving the build, but early game they were a complete lifesaver, just taking all that aggro for me so I can just sit at the back and peg some spells from afar. And I just want to let you guys know, yes, we have beaten the main campaign and we steamrolled through the main campaign. As soon as we got this setup going, it was really rough at the start, but as soon as we got this setup going, it was just steamrolling, absolutely cruising all the way to the finish line. So I'll show you some clips now, if I haven't already, of us just absolutely deleting most of the campaign bosses, especially all the main big ones at the end that you obviously have to beat the campaign. We are making them look silly, spanking their bottom, and sending them straight to the fucking Shadow Realm. BoneStrom is no joke. This skill is insanely strong. It puts pretty much everything to bed very quickly, and having bleed and chaos dots at the moment feels oh so good with keeping that damage constantly ticking over on the enemies / bosses. So this setup is a hell of a lot of fun to play, and I am really enjoying it right now that it's actually working. So yes, it is a little awkward to level witch, but it does get better, ladies and gentlemen. Perseverance does pay off. Alright, so let's not muck around any longer. I'm going to go over these supports very quickly. I feel like the game's been out long enough now. Most people know what every support does. You can't get understanding why I'm taking certain things. But I will mention certain interactions that I have picked up from watching other build guides, other content creators, just because I feel like they are worth mentioning. But other than that, I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. As you can see in the top left-hand corner, we are level 49. I did finish the campaign at level 48, for anyone that is wondering. Because we are Blood Mage, we are Blood Witch, we do have Life Remnants, the ascendancy that you have to take even if you don't want it. So you're kind of locked into Life Remnants, and for the supports, we do have Cannibalism and Clarity. Bone Blast, we're not really using Bone Blast. You can use Bone Blast if you want. You can clearly see the damage there. It's pretty respectable with no supports in it, so Bone Blast is quite strong. You can use that if you want to. We are not. And next is Malice. Malice is going to emit an aura. This aura is going to apply critical weakness to the enemies, which is going to increase our crit chance. This is plus crit chance. This is not percentage. None of that. This is literally plus 2 crit chance. So you can get 10, you can get plus 10% on top of your crit chance. So if you got 50% crit chance, you now have 60%. For BoneStrom, the supports for BoneStrom, we have Arcane Tempo, we have Scattershot. Scattershot is a must. Scattershot is really good for BoneStrom because it's going to give you 2 extra projectiles, and it does reduce your damage, which is a bit of a bummer, and it does reduce your attack speed and cast speed. But the funny thing with Scattershot and working with BoneStrom is a channeling ability, so I think reducing 20% cast time, it's actually buffing the cast time on BoneStrom because you're reducing the channeling cast time by 20%. I think that's why Scattershot is so strong. It definitely feels a lot quicker when you have Scattershot on. I'm not sure if it's just getting quicker because of the 2 projectiles or if it's because of that less cast speed that actually works with channeling. But either way, Scattershot feels really good with BoneStrom. We do have Brutality here, and then we also have Fork. Fork is fantastic for mobbing. I do put Considering Casting over Fork for bossing, because we obviously don't need Fork on while we're single targeting an enemy. So I do feel like Considered Casting is very, very strong there. You can see it gives us a very whopping damage increase. It's 40%. It does lower our attack speed, but all we want to do is hit the enemy as hard as possible so we can apply bleed, and we're just going to nuke the enemies very, very quickly that way anyway. But Fork is very effective for mobbing, so if you do want a good mobbing option with BoneStrom besides collecting power charges and using that AoE, yeah, Fork definitely goes pretty hard. For Bone Cage, we just have Considered Casting, Concentrated Effect, and also Spell Cascade. Grim Feast, I have no supports in Grim Feast yet. For Contagion, we have Chaotic Freeze, we have Persistence, and we also have Magnified Effect. I don't even notice Chaotic Freeze. I might be better off just putting more damage here, but Magnified Effect definitely feels pretty strong with Contagion, giving it more area of effect. And for Enfeeble, we've rigged this out to do Chaos dot damage. So we do have Hex Bloom, we do have Decaying Hex, and then we also have Impending Doom. Decaying Hex is how we're applying that Chaos dot. Impending Doom is going to blow enemies up when they die, and Hex Bloom is just going to spread Enfeeble so we don't have to apply it as often if we are applying it into mobs, which we never do because it's pretty costly, but this is really good for rares and bosses. So the supports for Profane Ritual, I've just got Profusion. Skeletal Reaver minions, I've just got Heft and also cold infusion. Okay, moving on over to the gear. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it too much because nothing is really set in stone. The main thing I think you want to try and prioritize being a physical spell damage witch is obviously spell physical damage, spell damage, increase to physical spell skills, crit damage bonus. BoneStrom does have 15% crit chance on the base level, so just any kind of crit hit chance increases are going to scale this up much higher than a lot of other abilities or skills you might have used on other characters. I'm taking barely any crit hit chance, and we're already sitting at nearly 35% crit hit chance with BoneStrom. Absolutely absurd. So I think in the long run, it's going to be really good to just stack crit hit damage bonus. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know. I'm still learning which as we're going, but I think crit hit damage bonus seems to probably be the way to go. I am obviously just trying to cap out on resistances. I do have a little bit of crit hit chance here. That is how we nearly have 35%, because I'm barely taking any in the tree. It's all crit hit damage bonus. I suppose I am trying to get life and mana, since we are draining life to use skills because of life remnant. So I think trying to prioritize life is probably going to be beneficial. I did get some boots with movement speed. If you can get movement speed early on, you're going to be way better off than without movement speed. Movement speed is very powerful on your boots. Just try and prioritize that. I am using one unique item. I do have this unique, the Midnight Braid Rawhide Belt. Damage taken is going to be recouped as mana, and since we have like Mind Over Mana, that is our first layer of defense. It's nice that when we take damage, 50% of that damage is going to be recouped as mana. I feel like this helps a little bit why we are taking Mind Over Mana, but you definitely don't need this unique belt if you don't have it. So moving on over to the passive skill tree, and I thought I would just put the passive skill tree here. It's all in full view, just so anyone can pause it and just copy this if you don't want to listen to me explain it a little bit in further detail. So there it is. Pause the video, copy it if you have to. But we are going to talk about the Ascendancy tree first, get this out of the way. We are taking Sanumancy. However you friggin' say that word, you are locked into this. It sucks. We don't need to talk about it anymore. I've already explained how much I dislike this decision here. But yeah, you are forced into Sanumancy. This is really strong, basically doubles your health, but it does suck a little bit that you are forced into it. And then we have gone for Bleed on crit chance, and then also Blood Barb. Now the main reason we've gone for Blood Barbs is I am a damage whore. Give me all that damage, baby. I want it now. But realistically, Vitality Siphon and Life Leech is probably the better way to go if you want more survivability. This is insanely strong. One BoneStrom is pretty much going to give you all your life back because of Vitality Siphon. That is where I'm going to go next, but like I said, I want all that damage and I want it now, so we're taking Blood Barbs. So for the passive tree, we've just gone up this way. We've taken cast speed, got more crit damage bonus for spells. You want to take as much of that as possible. More spell damage here, more crit chance, more crit damage bonus here. We have more crit damage bonus here. The jewels are nothing special. More crit chance. I've also got increased magnitude of damaging elements. This works with bleed. We are taking bleed. And then we've come over here to get blood tearing. We've got shredding force. This is going to give us more magnitude for our bleed, which does increase the damage of the bleed that you are doing, I think. So you do that initial hit with physical damage, you apply the bleed, and I think any increases to magnitude then scales that bleed up. I think that's how it works. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The other jewel here is just spell damage, cast speed, mana on kill. Nothing crazy, but it is obviously helping out the setup. Now, I did mention this somewhere in the video, but we are taking Mind Over Mana. This is going to give us another layer of defense. When we take damage, it's going to come from our mana first instead of our life. Since we are using life to cast our spells, it is nice to have just another layer of defense being our mana, since it's being used for nothing now, so it might as well be an extra like health pool. We do have more cast speed when we score crit. We score crits pretty frequently, and then we have another jewel down here which is increasing the crit spell damage by even further. More mana regeneration, and then I'm going to build into this tree to get more of the crit spell damage bonus and get desensitization. So that's basically it for the passive skill tree. Now moving forward, I'm actually not 100% sure what I want to do, but one thing I am certain of is I want to head over to Resonance again, and I want to test out power charges with Combat Frenzy and see if that's viable with BoneStrom, because I don't see anyone use power charges with BoneStrom. So either it's complete dog shit, that's the reason why no one's doing it, or maybe people just haven't really explored that side of which. I don't know, but that's one thing I'm definitely going to be testing out. So I think that just about does it for the first part of this Zero to Hero solo self-found witch playthrough. Right now I feel like Blood Witch is much better than people give her credit for. Yeah, it's still kind of weak compared to the other ascendancies and the choices you have there, but it's not total dog shit like some people make it out to be. Who knows, I'm only early game, mid game at best. Maybe I might eat those words later on, but I have a very strong feeling I'm probably maybe not. But either way, I'm super excited to see how this witch evolves through the game, through cruel difficulty, and then moving on over to the end game map system. I'll probably do the next part after I finish cruel difficulty, so depending on how quick I get through that is depending on how quick the next video comes out. But until then, appreciate all the love and support as always, guys. Stay safe and peace out.